Hi and welcome back. Today we're going to be working on the classic early American butterfly hinge. It's a simple form of surface mounted hinge that can be used on anything from cupboard doors to toolboxes. They come in all shapes and sizes, but this particular design uses the length of the barrel to determine the width of the flat face of the hinge. If you keep that proportion, you'll always wind up with a nice looking hinge. I'm starting out with a piece of 14 gauge sheet metal that's approximately 8 inches long and it's 1.5 inches wide. I start by folding roughly 2.5 inches from each end so they overlap in the middle. I've ground a thin edge on the ends of the bar to serve as a scarf joint. This is the material for both halves of the hinge. The barrels are on the outside edges of this package. In this first heat, I start by forge welding the very center of this bundle. And then I take another heat to finish welding the center section. And then I take a couple of heats to weld the main body of each hinge close to the barrel. It's important to use very quick, light hammer blows when you're welding this thin material. You need to get a good weld, but you don't want to be thinning out the material until you're ready to do the final shaping. You'll also notice that I'm really only concentrating on welding the center section of this bar, which is actually the outside edge of each hinge. The barrel of the hinge is shaped around the pin. It does not need to be welded. So I take a very low heat and shape the barrel of the hinge around the pin, and I hammer very carefully to make sure that I don't distort the pin inside the barrel. Here I've cut both hinges apart and I'm taking one last welding heat to make sure that I have everything solid before I start fullering the butterfly section of the hinge. Now I just have a little bit of file work and I'll be ready to start fitting the barrel of the hinge. I use a hacksaw to mark the location of the cuts. I'm sawing a groove on the barrel of the hinge section that's facing me. And I'm allowing the saw to just nick the barrel of the hinge section that's facing away from me. Now I'm going to remove the hinge section that was facing away from me, and I'm going to finish the cuts on the hinge section that was facing me in the vise. I'm going to lock the hacksaw into the grooves that I've already cut in the barrel, and then I'm going to saw right down to the jaws of the vise. For the other section of the hinge, I need to saw on the outside of the nicks that I made on the barrel. You can see the shiny marks left by the saw right next to the saw cuts here. Now I can use a cold chisel to cut out the section of each hinge that I don't need. I'm cutting roughly halfway through here, and then I'll break the pieces off in the jaws of the vise. Now if I did everything right, these two pieces shouldn't fit over each other. Now it's just a matter of carefully filing everything to make sure that the two halves of the hinge fit together. For the hinge to work properly, the center line of the barrel has to be in line with the front face of the hinge. If it isn't lining up, now is the time to tap it into place. You need to be able to push the pin into the barrel, and the pin needs to line up with the jaws of the vise. And the same holds true for the section of the hinge with the two short barrels. If all this lines up, you should be able to push the pin in very easily, and the open hinge should lie perfectly flat. Now you can cut the pin to length and rivet it in place. You don't need a big rivet head for this type of hinge. You just need to flare the pin enough so that it doesn't slide out of the barrel. Again, use very light hammer blows here. You just want to rivet the pin, not distort the barrel. Now I just need to drill the screw holes and I'm done. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.